Okay, so today we're diving into the work of Bob Camblin,
Bob Camblin.
and he's kind of a tough one to pin down, right?
Yeah, all our sources describe him as, well, recognized, but enigmatic.
Enigmatic, yeah.
Yeah.
So to help us really get a grasp on his work, we've got a bunch of stuff like actual quotes from
That
Camblin,
is safe.
details about his life,
Mm.
exhibitions, and even like a YouTube deep dive into one of his paintings,
Oh, cool.
right? And some snippets from books about his work.
That's quite the collection.
Yeah, we're hoping to kind of extract the essence of his vision from all this, right?
Hmm.
And also those themes, those recurring themes that keep like popping up in his art.
Yeah.
So think of this as like a cheat sheet
Yeah.
to understanding this very unique artist.
And it is a unique path he took. I mean, born in Oklahoma in 1928, gets his start at the Kansas City Art Institute, then a Fulbright scholarship takes him to Italy to really soak up centuries of artistic tradition. Then he starts teaching.
To different universities. But then, get this, in '76, he says goodbye to academia.
What?
Yeah, and becomes this nomadic artist, fully dedicated to his art.
Wow. So that's like completely intertwined with his artistic vision, isn't
It
it?
seems that way, yeah.
So despite, doing so much and being so respected,
Right.
Camlin's still kind of this mysterious figure, right?
Yeah.
His art, from oils, watercolors, drawings, even painted paper, it's rarely shown publicly
Yeah.
and super sought after by collectors, adds to the whole mystery.
Totally, yeah.
So although seeing his art in person might be, tough, we're going to at least try to get to the bottom of, the ideas behind it all.
Yeah.
So what are some of the big, concepts that we see when we look at Camblin's work?
Well, the thing that really struck me was this constant presence of paradox and questioning. One source even describes his art as, quote, a series of questions disguised as images.
Right. It's about provoking thought, challenging how we see the world. There's even these examples given, like a trap that doesn't trap,
Yep.
or a disappearing object. It really taps into that need we have for aha moments and seeing things from multiple angles.
Yeah.
Why do you think that constant questioning was so important in his art?
Well, I guess it suggests that he wasn't really interested in giving us answers,
Right.
but more in getting us to really engage.
Yeah.
And there's a definite intellectual side to his work, right? Like
Yeah.
this conversation between art and philosophy that keeps
Yeah.
coming up,
Right.
exploring the absurd, the profound, the stuff we usually just ignore.
Exactly.
He even draws on Zen Buddhism, the I Ching, existential thought. That's a pretty heavy intellectual toolbox.
Yeah, it is. And if you look at that alongside the images he uses, you start to see these deeper connections,
Yeah.
like impermanence and the cyclical nature of things. The YouTube analysis and the book excerpt, they both focus on a tree with doorknobs. Yeah.
That painting, right? They point to the forest and the tree stump
Okay.
as these metaphors,
Yeah.
right? The stump, it was once a living tree.
Right.
Now it represents change, decay, but also, the potential for something new.
Yeah.
This ties in perfectly with Zen's emphasis on impermanence and the I Ching's hexagram 23, splitting apart,
Mm.
this breaking down, but within it, the seed of renewal.
Okay.
And Camblin himself said, quote, fortunately, some things remain forever, or another 10 years, perhaps.
Yeah, I love that quote.
Yeah.
This kind of, playing with the lasting and the fleeting.
Absolutely.
And it leads to this idea of everyday enlightenment.
Yes.
Right? Like his art is telling us to see beauty in the unexpected, even in things that are, decaying or just absurd.
Yeah.
And there's this humor in it, this
Mhm.
acceptance of how everything's, temporary.
That's
It's
right.
about those small moments of insight in the everyday,
Precise.
not some big, earth-shattering revelation. Right. And this ties into how his illustrations are often described strange, humorous, even a little unsettling.
Yeah.
They're like koans that disrupt linear thought patterns.
Now, for those of us who aren't Zen masters, what exactly is a koan?
Oh, right. Sorry. Koans are these paradoxical stories or questions used in Zen to, kind of shake up our usual way of thinking.
So they're meant to kind of break our brains a little.
In a way, yeah.
Okay.
It's not about finding a neat logical answer, but more about jolting us into a state of mindfulness.
I see.
And there's this quote, fool the eye, fool the mind.
Hmm.
It suggests that by messing with how we see things,
Yeah.
he's trying to reach something deeper in how
Well,
we think.
no, what about his collaborative events
Yeah.
and the whole thing with signing his works as anonymous?
Yeah.
It's like he's shifting the focus away from the individual artist, right?
Right, towards a more collective expression.
Yeah.
The sources talk about his work with Earl Staley and Joe Tate as the holding firm.
Yeah.
It's a deliberate choice to move away from that, the classic lone artist trope.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah. Though the sources don't really go into detail about how they work together,
Right.
just the fact that they did, and under a shared name, suggests a focus on the work itself,
Mm-hmm.
the creative process, rather than individual recognition.
Hmm.
It fits with Camblin's whole thing of questioning the art world norms.
Totally. Now let's talk about this Muchas Volantes style.
Okay.
For someone who's, hearing that for the first time, what does that even look like?
So mouches volantes is French for flying flies.
Flying flies.
Yeah, and it refers to those little specks or threads you sometimes see, floating in your vision,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
especially when you look at something bright.
Right.
Well, Camblin's art imitates that.
Okay.
He uses these patterns of dots and dashes to create these shimmery, almost illusory effects. The image seems to change as you look at it.
Oh, wow.
So you really have to actively engage to see the image.
That's really cool.
It's like a more abstract, dynamic form of pointillism,
Okay, I get it.
inviting you to really participate in how you see the artwork.
And it seems like in a lot of his work, there's more than meets the eye, right? Like hidden meanings, secrets
Yeah.
that you only discover if you really look closely.
Right. The sources even mention how he uses text in his drawings.
Okay.
Maybe as clues, maybe as distractions, who knows?
It's like he's creating these intellectual puzzles,
Yeah.
but the reward isn't just, solving the puzzle, but maybe gaining some new insight.
Exactly.
And speaking of insight, his life itself must have played a huge role in his art.
Oh, absolutely.
His nomadic lifestyle, all the travel,
Yeah.
like growing up in Ponca City, Oklahoma, being influenced by the Marlin estate.
And the Pioneer Woman statue, which he actually had a personal connection to through his mother. Yeah, these early visual and cultural experiences, they must have shaped his visual language.
Yeah, and then there's his time in Italy.
Right, encountering the masterpieces of the Uffizi Gallery, but also the Capuchin catacombs.
The catacomb.
Yeah, those underground tunnels with all the skeletons.
Oh, wow.
These contrasting experiences, the beautiful and the macabre.
Yeah.
They must have been a rich source of inspiration.
So like the grandeur and the decay that he saw in Italy.
Right.
Maybe that's where those themes of, permanence and impermanence come from.
Could be.
And it's cool to see how his style evolved,
Yeah.
starting with abstract impressionism
Right.
and moving towards that unique Muchas Volantes style.
Yeah.
This constant need to innovate and explore.
Absolutely.
The sources even mention how his early work was social protest themes.
Eventually gave way to a deeper focus on symbols and inner experience.
That's a pretty big shift.
Yeah, it speaks to an artist on a constant journey of discovery and expression.
Totally.
Yeah.
And his views on the art world itself are fascinating.
Oh, for sure.
Like he seemed to have a complicated relationship with, galleries and museums.
Yeah, he wasn't comfortable with the idea of painting for money.
Right, and he had these unique ideas about how art should be shown.
Yeah, he really wanted the artist to control the entire environment, to minimize outside influence.
So it's all about the viewer's direct experience with the art.
Exactly, unfiltered, He valued the creative process and doing good work more than playing the art world game.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, what about some of the specific images and symbols?
Oh, there's a whole bunch.
Yeah, like what?
Well, there's scarecrows, often inspired by Günter Grass,
Okay.
puppets, skulls, these glass reliquaries with murky water in them.
Maybe water.
Yeah, and jars of water, which he saw as representing the transformation of obstacles into opportunities. And then there's gloves, machined objects, themes of metamorphosis, and this mysterious figure, Saint Bambola.
Wow, that's a lot to unpack.
It is, and the sources even suggest possible interpretations linking them to, Freud, De Chirico, Grunewald, Kazanzaki's Grass.
Okay, so scarecrows could be about, like, transience and societal anxieties, like in Grass's work.
Right.
The murky water maybe representing, the unconscious mind or hidden parts of ourselves.
Yeah, and the puppets and skulls could touch on control, mortality, the human condition.
Hmm.
It's really a tapestry of symbols that invites, your own interpretation.
And the influence of Zen in Eastern philosophy is pretty clear.
Yeah, his interest in Emerson, the I Ching, haiku, and haiga, Zen Buddhism itself.
Think a whole philosophical framework?
It is, and this idea of mu, yeah, often translated as emptiness or non-being,
Okay.
and the balance between, intuition and logic.
How does that mu concept show up in his art?
That's a good question. So mu, in Zen, it's not just about nothingness. It's more like a space of potential, clearing away preconceptions to have a direct experience.
Okay.
In Camblin's art, this could be in those open-ended questions he poses as images.
Right.
The way he disrupts our expectations, that invitation to see beyond the surface. Even the Mushas Volantes technique with its, shifting imagery.
Yeah.
It could be seen as a visual representation of this idea of things not being fixed, encouraging a more fluid way of seeing.
And some of his quotes really highlight his philosophical side,
Yeah.
Like, quote, look into the atom, you get what you need. Look into magic and you get what you need. Philosophy and art are in both.
Yeah, that's a great one.
It's like he's saying that science, magic, philosophy, and art, they're all connected somehow.
Yeah, and then there's that very Zen-like instruction, quote, step off the train of thought.
Yeah, like stop overthinking.
Exactly.
And then there's quote, when you think, don't act. When you act, don't think.
Because that's a tricky one.
Yeah, it seems to be saying that we need to move beyond, just thinking and embrace a more intuitive way of being and creating.
Interesting.
And there's this quote about art and love, quote, art is and it isn't, and now everyone knows love. Art, if experienced, no description is necessary, but often making out is confused with love, and feeling good is not always art.
Wow, that's pretty provocative.
Yeah, challenging our ideas about both and emphasizing the importance of actual experience over just understanding something superficially.
I like this one about his creative process. Quote, there are no mistakes. You are doing the best you can, and mistakes are nature's way of telling you to trust your instincts, or the next mistake could be really bad.
So it's all about, like, embracing the unexpected.
Yeah, and trusting your gut.
And finally, there's that analogy of the jump. Quote, the fish doesn't know water and the bird doesn't know air, but...
Yeah, what do you make of that one?
It suggests this deep, maybe unconscious understanding of the world around us. Like this connection that goes beyond, conscious thought. Okay, let's go back to the tree with doorknobs for a sec.
Yeah, that painting seems to be a key to understanding a lot of this.
So the YouTube video and the book excerpts both talk about the tree stump as a symbol of change.
Right, and potential.
And the red border, they say it represents vitality.
The life force.
And the forest itself, it embodies that idea of impermanence.
Yeah, that nothing stays the same.
And then there's the whole connection to Mu and the I Ching splitting apart.
Right, that cyclical idea of endings leading to new beginnings.
It's amazing how this one painting seems to hold so much of Camblin's, artistic and philosophical ideas.
It really does. It's like a microcosm of his entire output.
Bringing together those themes of impermanence, transformation, and the cyclical nature of things.
Yeah, all in a visually powerful way.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Bob Camblin, what are the main things we've learned?
What stands out to you?
Well, for me, it's that he was an artist who just refused to be put in a box.
Definitely.
He embraced paradox, explored these deep philosophical questions through his art.
Right.
And he was always challenging us to see the world differently.
Yeah, his nomadic lifestyle must have only added to that.
Totally. So for those listening, hopefully this has been a good introduction to the complex world of Bob Camblin.
Yeah, we've tried to highlight the key takeaways
Moments.
without, overloading you with information.
Exactly. His work really encourages you to think differently.
Yeah.
Which is something we could all, benefit from.
Absolutely.
So here's a final thought to chew on. Camblin once said that just seeing a picture of the Sistine Chapel ceiling and talking about it, the aesthetics, the social and philosophical aspects, that might be enough to, quote, experience it.
Interesting.
And he talked about the importance of what he called magic seeing. So in our world today, where we're bombarded with, information about art, often through screens, what's the real value of that direct personal encounter with a work of art.
Yeah, good question.
Is the idea of the artwork enough? Or do we need that direct experience to really connect with it? To connect with what Camblin called, quote, the endless part of life?
That's something to think about.
It really is.
It is.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
We'll see you next time.
See them.